Assalamu alaikum, welcome back. You're watching Just Law. We were discussing employment and immigration matters. I have a guest who's going to assist us with our questions, Madeeha Dani, who is a employment and Islamic wills solicitor based in London. I have a few questions of my own, so inshallah I'll ask those. After that, we'll open the phone lines again for your questions. Please keep your questions brief, concise, and to the point. And please do remember, whatever we say in this show is from the information, the limited information we have taken from yourselves. And before you take any action, it's always advisable to go to somebody and make full disclosure of all your information and then take appropriate steps. So please do bear that in mind. Madeeha, if someone, let's say for an employment matter, someone was upset with their employer, they got dismissed or something along those lines, and they go to lawyers, they put their case, and for whatever reason the matter just sits there, and the time has passed, time has lapsed. They have 3 months, do they not? 3 months. They have 3 months to lodge an application. If that deadline is missed, what options does the employee have?
Well, there's a few options. One is you can actually make an application to the tribunal to get an extension of time. So you can argue that for various reasons, in this case your solicitor was negligent, I guess, if they've just sat on the case, and based on that, in the interests of justice, you should get an extension of time. Now, a lot of tribunals will say, well, you've instructed solicitors, they haven't done what they're supposed to do, so we're not actually going to extend the time, but you have to then go after them to seek your remedy.
So the tribunal is saying you have an alternative remedy, so you should pursue that.
Yeah, yeah. So the alternative remedy then is to sue your solicitors. I mean, that's, they've taken on the case. They're a professional organisation. You've instructed them to lodge the claim, if that's what you did. They failed to do that, and that's the first thing any employment solicitor would, keep an eye on. Like, as soon as they get your case, okay, because there's a strict time limit here, 3 months less 1 day from the date you've been dismissed or from when you've been discriminated against. So they would have that in their mind. So if they've missed the deadline, then they could have a potential negligence case against them, and you could, potentially claim what you would have got from your employer if you'd been successful.
But again, we will never know that, right?
We'd never know that, but the case would be that you missed the chance to even bring that claim. So it wouldn't be like you'd get sort of 100% what you would be going for. It would be, there would be some,
estimation as to what it could have been.
Yeah, and based on the merits of your case. So if you didn't really have a case, then it's not very likely that you'd get anything out of it. So that's one cause of action. And also you can complain to the legal ombudsman. So they're sort of an independent organisation that, they look at.
So they would look at the conduct of the lawyer or solicitor and see if things should have been done differently. Okay. I'm going to turn to the phone line and see what the next question is. Assalamu alaikum. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. My name is Mrs. Abbasi. I'm calling from London.
Okay, what's your question?
I have questions regarding immigration. Two questions.
Okay.
One is, if somebody is applying for neutralization after indefinite leave, if that person is on benefits, any kind of benefit, state funds like housing benefits or child tax credit, these things gonna affect the application? He should go for the benefits, or he should not, until he get the passport? And second question is, if somebody is on FLRM and when the extension, second extension, they don't meet the threshold of 18,600, if the applicant goes to FLRFP, would that, if the applicant go for FLRFP, it's gonna discontinue the previous time clock, or they will continue again 10 years, or they will continue, when she can apply for 10 years under long residency, if including that FLRFP extension.
So the second question is, someone is on a spouse visa, but you're saying they can't apply for an indefinite because they don't meet certain requirements. Yeah?
No. Question is, if somebody has already a spouse visa, and on the extension they have to meet the threshold of 18,600.
No, that part is understood. So I understood you're saying they're on the new spouse visa route. they don't meet some of the requirements when they want to extend, what happens? When can they apply for the indefinite? I understood your question.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Sister, there's one question at a time. In relation to applying for naturalization, inshallah, if someone wants to apply for naturalization, they would need to have either indefinite leave to remain or on the European route permanent residency. Now, if you have permanent residency or indefinite leave to remain, you're not under what they term as immigration control. So if you make claims to benefits, up until this point, inshallah, it shouldn't have a negative impact on you becoming British. Of course, this may change, the rules can change every few months, etc. But up until this point, if you are claiming benefits, that is not a bar. That doesn't prevent you from applying for naturalization to become British. So the basic requirements for naturalization to become British is either you have indefinite leave to remain or permanent residency at least for a year. You meet the residency requirements, the English language requirements, the good character requirements. Usually people call in and discuss about, because last October, December, they have included the 10-year good character requirements. So if there was any immigration violations in the last 10 years, there is a possibility that the Home Office will say, on this occasion, your naturalization application is unsuccessful because in 2007, you overstayed or you broke one of our immigration rules or you worked over 20 hours when you're not entitled to. So they may come back with that. So I think keep an eye out for the good character requirements for the last 10 years in terms of not breaking immigration rules. But claiming benefits, if you have children, you claim child benefit, they regard that as a public fund. So inshallah, I don't think if someone claimed child benefit being on indefinite leave to remain, that will hinder their naturalization. I don't think it would. The current rules, there shouldn't be any problem, inshallah. But if you can wait, or if it's, you're about to make the application, again, see a consultant, give them full disclosure of all your circumstances, and then take their opinion on that, inshallah. In relation to your second question, if someone came to the UK on a spouse visa, on the new route, which is 2.5 years, after the first 2.5 years, they apply to extend, and they don't meet some of the requirements, and they apply using the FLRFP. What could happen is if they give you the discretionary leave to remain, then it does put you on the 10-year route. But if you meet the English language requirements and you have a child who's British, then inshallah you should still be able to stay on the 5-year route. But this is something that you'll have to discuss with your agent or your lawyer and see how to manage so that you're not on the 10-year discretionary route, inshallah. So I hope I answered this question. If you don't meet the requirements of the FLRM, there is a real risk that you will be put on the 10-year lawful residence route to get indefinite. If you meet the English language requirement, or if you have a child who's British, inshallah, there's still a possibility you can stay on the 5-year route. Okay? In terms of, immigration is not your main area of concern. Now, in terms of the migrants coming into Europe, as a Muslim community, we've been quite silent. I've not heard anything. This country doesn't have a huge Syrian population. Now, if I was a Syrian watching TV, I would feel quite upset and distraught. They're my people, and they're struggling to come here. Again, I think in terms of your opinion, could the Muslim community do more to help refugees? They're sleeping on train tracks and outside stations. Can we do more?
Yeah, I think it is very sad as to what's happening. It's taking over the news, obviously, rightly because of what's happening, especially with the UK, where they've, obviously there's a restriction on how many can come here from Syria. The Muslim community as a whole, there's, mashallah, there's so many Muslim countries. Turkey's done quite well, taken in a lot of refugees. And obviously the surroundings of countries like Jordan and so on, but there's many Muslim countries that still could take, and who can afford to take.
I think one of the news channels, they actually put the map of the Gulf area, Saudi Arabia, 0. And then, you know, Qatar, 0. United Arab Emirates, 0.
Yeah. I mean, they're the ones that are getting,
So why is it that, I mean, my focus of my question was the Muslim community in the UK.
In the UK, yeah.
Is there more we can do as a community? Because
in terms
having
of
people, you know, sleeping rough out on in a train station, as a community, I think we have a duty to help, do we not?
Well, I think we can put pressure on the government in the UK to do something about this, because there's obviously policies in place which is restricting, you know, asylum seekers from Syria to come to the UK. So I think there needs to be, you know, more people speaking out against, you know, this. UK has always been a country that has taken on, you know, people from all over the world that are suffering, and, you know, I think, the Muslim community
I think, to be fair, the British government or the Home Office policy is, if you can establish that you're from Syria or Iraq fleeing persecution or war, usually it's sort of quite easy that they will give you refugee status. This changed about 2 years ago. Before that, they used to process them, and it was a long-winded thing. But now it's, they know they can't deport you if you're from Syria or Iraq, or it's virtually impossible. So instead of going through all the legwork and knowing the end result is the same, they've made it quicker and easier. But again, I think the Muslim community as a whole, apart from donating money, is there anything else we can do? I think we can raise awareness, of course. I think the Pope was talking about adopting families.
I heard about that.
I think that's a Muslim thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
because that's what the people of Ansar did in Medina. The Muhajir, the migrants, came and they opened up their homes, and that's why we have the Ansar and the Muhajir, the migrant and the host. I think the Muslim community here can do a lot more.
We haven't heard a lot from the Muslim community, you're right, and I think we can do a lot more. You know, and inshallah, I think we need to, because, you know, these are our brothers and sisters, and they're suffering, and, you know, it is our duty.
I think we're falling short on that duty. Viewers, of course, if you have views on this one, inshallah, you can call in and put your thoughts on it. As you know, it is headline news. A lot of Muslims from Syria, Iraq and other war-torn places, they're trying to make their pathway through Europe. In my view, Britain could do a lot more, and it hasn't. So inshallah, if you're watching this show and you feel you want to contribute, you can email us with your thoughts, and inshallah we'll discuss them next week or week after. And you know, they are our brothers and sisters, and seeing families and children out in the cold, outside train stations or small towns in Bulgaria or Hungary or Macedonia or Serbia, I think as a community we can do a lot more, and we need to do a lot more. So inshallah, let's raise awareness on this. Let's communicate a bit more and gather our ideas and see what we can do. A lot of people call in and ask immigration questions, how can they stay here, etc., which is great. You know, we need to share information, but I think we need to reach out, especially as a migrant community, to other migrants who are trying to, you know, save their lives actually, and protect their future and their children. Some people in Hungary actually went out and they were distributing food and water and things like that. Some people from Austria actually took their own cars to pick up migrants. Now, in this country, if you actually cross the border with migrants, you're likely to be prosecuted for people smuggling.
Yeah.
So I think viewers need to be careful that you can't do it here. So that is a risky thing to do. Before you take any action, make sure you have legal advice. Make sure you have, you know, you're well informed about the situation, what's happening, how it's happening, what the current policy is. My personal view on this, I think Europe is going to tighten up. So they're sort of letting off steam, allowing a few people to come in. After that, they will tighten their borders again. I don't know how Germany will deal with the influx of migrants, but it's quite likely they will start processing and refusing people who are not from war-torn countries. But that's, you know, subsequent events that they will decide, inshallah. In terms of people coming to the UK, asylum is one method, but they have other methods of coming to the UK. If they have funds, they can come here as students. If they have, a bit more. They can come as entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
If they have family members who are British, they should go and seek legal advice because the European laws can be quite flexible in terms of dependent family members.
Yeah.
So that could be something they can
The other
utilize.
options. Yeah.
In terms of the Muslim countries, I think we should all sort of connect with our back home and say, look, what are you doing to assist?
Yeah.
Because as a community, I think we've been quite silent. And
It's true,
the people
yeah,
you see helping, usually, you can tell they're not actually Muslims who are helping.
They're non-Muslims. Yeah, it is really sad. Like that countries, especially Syria. I mean, more than half the people have been displaced, it's been going on for many years now. And it's just sad.
I think also the local neighboring countries, so Jordan, Lebanon, Turkey, they're also losing patience because they thought it was a temporary 6-month, 1-year thing, and now it's it's coming on to its 5th year, I think in March or something. So 4.5 years, people cannot just sit and wait.
Of course,
so a lot of the Syrians in Turkey, they're saying, look, it's okay to be here for 6 months, 1 year, but we can't see how we're going to go back, so we need to build something where we can see this is home.
Of course.
And I think in this regard, the Muslim community, we can, if you have 500,000 people absorbed into Europe's 300 million, that's not even 1%. So it's easy to deal with. Whereas if you just have one particular country, it can cause problems.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think Turkey, Jordan, Lebanon, they're having their own internal issues. And if something is not done, winter is approaching fast.
Yeah.
I think we'll have more
because
problems.
The conditions, exactly. So they're not really living even in permanent sort of housing. Some of these people, they're sort of in camps. So it is a difficult situation for a lot of people.
And I think as a community, we need to do a lot more, inshallah.
Sure.
Viewers, we are discussing immigration, migrant issues, employment law. If you have questions on Islamic wills. I have a question on police action because I know you do that.
Yeah.
So if someone feels maybe they were falsely or wrongly arrested, or if someone feels they were arrested because of their religious affiliation or something like that, what would be required to bring an action against the police?
Well, with action against the police, a claim for negligence is not that easy to make.
So this is where the police sort of fall short on their duties? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
But you can make a claim for false imprisonment.
What does that entail? Is that when they arrest you and they're not entitled to? Or?
Yeah, and they've basically detained you. And there's no real, there's nothing there really.
Or detained you beyond what they were allowed to do?
Because there's obviously certain periods of time that they, they have to let you go.
Up to 24 hours, and then they have to make a decision.
Have to charge you, So you can make a claim for that. If obviously you need to go and see your lawyer, and they can advise you as to whether they think there are any grounds for that. Unlawful arrest is something similar to that. I've dealt with mostly. Well, I've got a case at the moment where my client was actually physically, basically beaten up by the police. The police are arguing, as they would, that my client was aggressive and violent, and they had to use what they called reasonable force to, restrict him from, running away. But the injuries that were suffered by my client were quite significant, and it's going to come down to obviously the evidence at the end of the day. There was 2 policemen, and there was my client.
Has the IPCC been involved?
No. We've gone directly to actually make a claim against the police. So the IPCC, yes, they have certain jurisdiction, but they deal with more the conduct of the policemen rather than obviously them doing something. In terms of, I'm seeking compensation for the injuries that my client has suffered. So they don't usually deal with that. They just look at the conduct of the police itself.
Okay, well, viewers, as you just heard, if someone was arrested or kept in custody or they were maltreated by the police, you may have a case against the police for either wrongful arrest or false imprisonment or some other sort of breach of duty that the police has towards you as a person they have apprehended.
I mean, what's come in recently is actually what's called damage-based agreements. So this is where the solicitors don't charge you anything, but they get a percentage of what's
the damages that's been awarded.
Yeah. With the conditional fee agreements, what usually happens is that they don't charge you, but then they claim costs from the other side, and they can also charge an uplift, so a slightly higher amount, towards their fees, because obviously they've deferred their fees in some ways.
Or they've taken risk. They could have got nothing for it.
They've taken a big risk, yeah. So before you could claim that uplift from the other side, but now the law's actually changed with the conditional fee agreement, so it's actually the client that has to pay that uplift. So I guess it would come from their compensation or from their own funds.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. So it's always useful if someone is arrested and it was a wrongful arrest, or they were apprehended and kept in custody longer than they should. If the matter is discontinued, or if the person was acquitted, it's always useful to sort of see if the conduct of the police was as it should have been. If they've been unreasonable, or if they've gone beyond their duties, or if they've used excessive force, or if someone has suffered injury because of their actions, it would be advisable to go and have consultation, see if there is something that can be sort of claimed or put forward. If it's a minor, or if you don't want to go to lawyers, you can always complain to the IPCC. They're independent, but they're still, some people see them as still part of the police, but they are independent, and they look into the conduct of the police and see if some of your complaints can be upheld. Now, if some of your complaints are upheld, then usually it's quicker to get some sort of compensation, because you have an independent authority saying that the police has failed on this particular issue. The damages could be anything really, so it's always useful to pursue matters and see where that takes you. Madeeha, would you agree that if someone has suffered injury, then they should sort of consider and see if there is something that they can get compensation for?
Sure, of course. Yeah, they should go and see a solicitor.
In terms of financial losses, that's far more difficult to obtain, isn't it?
It
I mean,
is,
if someone is
yeah.
arrested and they've not worked, say they work where they're like a consultant, or if they're running a business, it's hard to quantify their loss.
Yeah.
And they may not be able to claim consequential loss. So that could be difficult.
Oh,
but injuries,
it's
it's something that you should, someone should look into.
Yeah.
No one should be injured by the people who are tasked to protect
Sure, of course.
the public.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a case at the moment actually where my client, he was detained for a period of time and then he lost his job. And our argument is really he shouldn't have been detained because there wasn't really any real evidence. So I am trying to claim now his compensation for a period of time, which was I think around 6 months that he wasn't able to work, or he was sacked from his job, obviously. So yeah, I'm in the middle of negotiations with the police. So potentially, if you've got the evidence there and it's linked to the act, yeah, you should be able to make that claim. Okay.
All right, viewers, that's all we have time for this week, inshallah. I'd like to thank Madeeha. I'd like to thank you for watching. You can email us on justlaw@iqra.tv. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.